Who were the people actually responsible for his death? No one is responsible for his death except Jason Arday. There's a lot of plagiarists in the world. There's a lot of fabulists in the world. There's a lot of con artists in the world who are exposed, and they don't kill themselves. We are so lucky to have you. You are the best in the world in terms of the research you do. That's demonstrably false. Cambridge knew it was false, and yet they had so invested in Jason Arday because they were virtue signaling to the world that they were morally superior to most people because in their great magnanimity they had allowed a black scholar to enter this cloister of the world's top scholars. And after he...
Grace and peace, everybody. We got a video here real quick. We're going to address the question, why did Jason Arday take his own life? So shout out for sure to the Daily Signal. Great content. I'm going to drop that link down in the description as well for you. So with no further ado, Green Hearts in the chat, you can hear.
Kill himself because he was embarrassed and he was exposed for something he did. Who were the people actually responsible for his death? No one is responsible for his death except Jason Arday. Hello, this is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal. What or who killed Jason Arday? That's a question that's being asked in the English-speaking intellectual academic university world. Jason Arday was a 41-year-old British subject of African descent who obtained a very rare, prestigious professorship, donship at Cambridge University in the UK, which along with Oxford are the two most prestigious colleges universities in Britain, if not the English-speaking world. So he obviously drew a lot of attention. He magnified that attention by writing a memoir that just came out. In it, it was full of things that were not just made up or myths, but could not be physically possible. And they were completely contradicting what he said he was going to write when he wrote a 45-page prospectus to the publisher Simon Schuster. For example, he said he had brain cancer. The book says he has testicular cancer. He says he ran 600 miles, 100 miles a day in 6 days. He ran 30 marathons, 26 miles each in a little over 30 days. He said he was a top pool player or billiards player. And then when they started looking at his scholarly account that gained him this professorship, there was hardly any scholarship there. And his dissertation had over 100 passages that were lifted, borrowed, stolen from other writers and scholars. And then the question arose, what do you do with him when this memoir is going to be published that everybody knows is full of invention and lies, and not just lies, but things that cannot be true? And then, of course, controversy, why was he given this position when he was utterly unqualified? Even if he had not lied and made things up about his life and said he couldn't speak till he was 11 and said that he did all of these fantastic races and he ran with a swollen leg and things that were just crazy, he still should not have been hired.
And I think that's a great question. Why did he get this far and have such a checkered, unverified path? Who verified any of his claims at Cambridge? That's a question that Cambridge is going to have to answer.
Committed suicide. This is why we're talking about him today, given the negative publicity and controversy that he incurred. And people are very angry in Britain on the left, and they're accusing the right or conservatives for objecting to this appointment and to chastising Cambridge for being fooled by this con artist.
Right.
And the subtext is they would have never hired him had they not been committed to diversity, equity, inclusion protocols that privilege one's race over merit in many cases. Let me just read to you what Cambridge University said about Jason Arday, even though there were rumors and there were investigations at the time suggesting that he was an abject plagiarist. Here's what high university officials released to the press. Jason Arday is an exceptional scholar of race inequality and education. He will contribute significantly to Cambridge's research in this area and to addressing the underrepresentation of people from socio-economically disadvantaged backgrounds, especially those from Black, Asian, and other minority ethnic communities. And a final parting praise, we are so lucky to have you. You are the best in the world in terms of the research you do. That's demonstrably false. Cambridge knew it was false, and yet they had so invested in Jason Arday because they were virtue signaling to the world that they were morally superior to most people because in their great magnanimity they had allowed a black scholar to enter this cloister of the world's top scholars. And after he killed himself, given that news accounts had exposed him as a plagiarist and a faker and a fabulous, then the left turned around and said, you didn't do that to other people who had committed these transgressions. Well, of course they did. Stephen Glass, the New Republic plagiarist.
That's not true. There are tons of people who have been drugged through media and social media streets because they've been phony, false, and fake. And no, there's tons of them. The problem is this gentleman chose a path of cowardness and taking his own life rather than just playing through. He could have just played through. There's so many opportunities that still would have been available to him if he just came true. Imagine if he just went on and said, you know what, y'all, I've been lying, and just did a I was lying speaking tour. He would have been, he would have been kind of wild, but yeah, there were so many other options besides taking your life.
And Fabulous, he had his entire career destroyed, and he was the object of ridicule in a movie about it. Stephen Ambrose was probably the most popular and beloved World War II and presidential historian of the last 30 years when he was exposed as a plagiarist who stole a lot of passages from another scholar of the U.S. bombing campaign in World War II, and he was utterly discredited and reviled for doing that. So why did Jason Arday kill himself? Because he was embarrassed and he was exposed for something he did. Who were the people actually responsible for his death? No one is responsible for his death except Jason Arday. There's a lot of plagiarists in the world. There's a lot of fabulists in the world. There's a lot of con artists in the world who are exposed and they don't kill themselves. He chose to make that decision when his world that he had fabricated came crashing down upon him, and also in collateral damage exposed the absurdity of diversity, equity, inclusion, racialism, and tribalism, and anti-meritocratic hiring and admissions. But we can point, if we're going to play this game, to two culprits. Simon and Schuster published his memoir, Great and Unfortunate Things, right before his suicide. And they gave him a $1.4 million advance. Now, I can tell you, as someone who's written 20 books from New York publishers like Alfred Knopf, Simon Schuster, Doubleday, Bloomsbury, Basic Books, that these days no one really gets a $1.4 million advance unless you're a celebrity or a politician.
Right.
Usually you get about $3 a book. So if these books will sell between, like Jason Arday's, 5,000 copies to 10,000 copies. So he might have earned on the actual sales 15 to 20 to 25,000. That advance of 1.4 million will never be realized. But they gave it as part of this gift to this DEI candidate, and they wanted to show the world that just like Cambridge University, Simon and Schuster wanted to encourage inclusivity of black academics. But then they did something else. They were told by reporters and journalists and the media that...
So I just checked real quick. If the going rate is $3 a book, Jason Arday would needed to have sold almost 500,000 copies of that book in order to justify the $1.4 million advance on his royalties. That is absolutely crazy. And this gentleman right here is saying that he probably would have did probably about 25,000. So imagine that the difference between 500,000 and 25,000 is absolutely diabolical. Wow.
Jason Arday was a fraud. They knew that earlier on their own investigation because he wrote, as I said, a 45-page prospectus of what he was going to write so he would get the advance that was entirely at odds with what he submitted as a manuscript. But whether it was the prospectus or the actual book, it didn't matter if they didn't jibe because they didn't jibe either one of them with reality.
Goodness gracious.
And so this was all known. And why did they publish it when they knew it was a fraud? Why did they publish it? Because they had spent $1.4 million and they were going to market it, no doubt, as a controversial book. You've all heard about Jason Arday and all of his lies and fables. Come to the book and look at it. And so rather than being an adulatory memoir, which they originally thought it might be, it was sort of a Carnival Barker type of book. And they thought somehow the publicity that Jason got from all of his fables would help sales, and they could get back their 1.4 million. But what might have happened is when he knew that that book was coming out, and his problems would be increased as people picked up that book and could read with their own eyes, their own mind, they could see that what he said was physically impossible, they would have only more contempt for him. And that might have hastened the decision that he made to end his life.
Wow.
There's another culprit, and that is Cambridge University.
Facts.
They knew that he was not the top scholar in his field. They knew that he had problems telling the truth. They knew that under the rigid requirements of Cambridge University, he would have never qualified had he not been a DEI, and yet they lied about that. They said that he was one of the top scholars of the world, and they put him in a position of which he did not deserve, and he was unable by any stretch of the imagination to fulfill the obligations of scholarly rigor that's required of a position at Cambridge of that caliber. And so obviously he knew that once he got that position and once he was exposed, he would either be fired by the same people who had brought him in there and elevated and inflated his worth, would now turn on him and say, you know what, we are embarrassed to what you did to us, and fire him. Or if they didn't fire him, there was no way in the world, given his abilities and his problems with the truth, that he could be a genuine Cambridge scholar. The bottom line, it was not conservatives, it was not journalists, it was not the media who destroyed Jason Arday. Jason Arday committed suicide on his own volition. The accessories to that was Simon Schuster, who chose to go ahead and publish a memoir they knew was fraudulent,
Right.
and which Jason Arday, within days after the publication, killed himself. And Cambridge University, which deliberately lied and inflated an applicant for a professorship by claiming that he had talents that he and they knew he did not. Thank you very much. This is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal.
Shout out to Victor, man. That was a great summary, and I think it's true. And again, I've done it in videos. I leave a link up here to a video that I did before, and I really want people to realize that even in the midst of being embarrassed and even in the midst of being called out and being found to be a scam and a fraud, self-deletion isn't the option that one needs to take. And Jason Arday took that option, but he didn't have to. And I talked about that in that video up here, so check that out for sure. But I thought it was great that he explained it, because really, we're going to watch a video in a moment where all these people are complaining about the media. All these people complaining about the right. They called him out, blah, blah, blah. But no, why did y'all not? There's family and friends who are going to sit here on this platform and talk about how terrible it was that Jason Arday was called out. But I'm like, well, where were y'all when he was out here lying in these streets like this? Like, why did you not call it out? So let's bring this in. Shout out for sure. We got Hannibal is hungry up in the building. Let's go.
Journalists, so-called academics, the media, to hold them all responsible. They say lynchings are dead, but they're not dead. They're not over. There's still lynch. This is an example of modern day lynching.
So the saga of Jason Arday continues, and there's a law that's being proposed on change.org that is completely ridiculous. It is showing that people are not able to separate some issues here. Everything has to be about race. Everything has to be about a victim. The narrative is that Jason Arday is a complete victim, despite the fact that he has lied continuously throughout his entire life. It's not his fault. It's everybody else's fault. So we're going to get to that and more in this video. Let's get into it. So if you didn't know, there was a vigil or rally for Jason Arday yesterday or the day before. And the narrative throughout the entire rally was that it was not Jason Arday's fault that this has happened. It is the media's fault. It's racism, despite the fact that Jason Arday plagiarized. It was enough evidence to suggest so, telling a lot of lies, making these crazy stories about his life that no one could verify, no one could corroborate. There was no evidence of this. And the fact that when Jason Arday realized that the jig was up, he was not fired. He resigned from his job and then later committed suicide. So we're going to check out some of the things that these people have been saying. A lot of people truly believe that Jason Arday didn't do anything wrong. He was a victim of too much media attention.
Last week, I was with Jason. because we knew Jason was suffering. We knew that he felt hounded by those rabid wolves. Jason wouldn't dare leave the house. And we said, we'll get a taxi for you. We held him in our arms.
You know, I'm kind of wondering, and I admit I'm not committed to the deep lore of Jason Arday, but where is his family? I don't know who these people are. It doesn't look like his family is there. Apparently he was married. He has children. Like, where's his actual family? Mom, dad, you know, in-laws, those kind of people. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see.
We told him he was loved. He held Diane's hands and he said, I love you. But he said, they're hounding me to death. And I cannot see a way out.
He was first appointed as a professor in Cambridge 3 years ago. And for those 3 years, he has had a vicious campaign, a bitter campaign by anonymous people, by other professors.
The people that were talking about him were not anonymous. They have their names. I think the main guy who's been talking about this for weeks, you saw his name. So it wasn't really anonymous at all. There were people that were suggesting that the things that he was saying was not true.
This is a story of corruption, of people who knew the truth and covered it up, who used the threat of legal intimidation to silence people, including journalists who tried to tell the truth. To this day, as far as I'm aware, there isn't a single member of the Cambridge faculty who has spoken publicly about the wrongdoing in this situation, because the administration has created such an environment of intimidation that people can't express views that go against their ideology.
I mean, Jason Arday did say that he felt he was being harassed.
I mean, if you do something wrong repeatedly and knowingly, and people ask you questions about it, I mean, you can't just get off scot-free by calling it harassment.
That's why he had to quit. He realized once Cambridge had to do their own investigation that it was going to find out that a lot of things he said was not true. The fact that he said that he ran multiple marathons on a broken foot, that there was people chasing him around campus with knives, yet there's no evidence. Some Jussie Smollett type of activity where he would suggest things that just didn't happen.
Who just didn't believe that a black man should be a Cambridge
that's
professor.
not true. That's not
At his vigil tonight, thousands came to pay their respect, including one of his students.
His scholarship mattered enormously to so many, but his greatest contribution cannot be found in a publication, a title, or a citation, nor in his talks. It is found in people who continue to love him, in the lives he changed, and the confidence he gave us, and the doors that he fought to hold open behind him.
The MP, Bel Rivera Addy, passed on the family's words.
The public cruelty Jason was subjected to was too much for any man to bear.
They all had a hand in the downfall of Jason Arday.
No,
Every
Jason
single
had
one of them.
The world is a worse place without him in it.
We're sick and tired of this racism.
Professor Jason Arday.
Hold on. No, ma'am. The world is a better place is the worst place without him. Why? How is this racism? I would love for them to articulate that fully and completely. How is this racism? When you're calling out somebody who has deliberately and intentionally frauded the book publisher, Cambridge University, and countless other entities, how is that racism by calling that person out?
The youngest black professor appointed at Cambridge University was found dead in London on August 14th. He had faced allegations of plagiarism and falsifying his achievements. More than 90,000 people have signed a petition for a public inquiry. Prime Minister Andy Burnham called his death a tragedy on so many levels, and many others labelled it a racist media feeding frenzy and relentless harassment. We went to London's Trafalgar Square.
Hold on, let me back this up a little smidgen. I know I keep doing this, right? You can harass a black professor to death, but you cannot protest a genocide. Like, what does that got to do with? See, that's what I'm saying. This has nothing to do with anything intelligent and honest, in my opinion. Let's go.
Racist media feeding frenzy and relentless harassment. We went to London's Trafalgar Square, where thousands gathered at a vigil to remember him and speak out against racism.
I mean, my wife used to teach Jason at Merton College. She knew him and knew the family. It's a loving caring soul. The world is a worse place without him in it. And they've hounded him to a point where he had no conceivable way out, no further options.
He had options. He could have been more transparent, explained why he was telling these lies, or prove that the lies were not lies, that they were the truth. If he didn't do it, he would have been able to prove that he didn't do it. Problem
Can you
is
imagine
that he did
that?
it and he couldn't handle it.
Like imagine if everything he said he could prove, then why did you quit? If everything you did you could prove, then why did you take your own life? Because you would have been able to prove it. That's the point. And I'm sorry, like that's just silliness.
Because he built a false reality of this grandiose hero that was able to be extremely smart and able to run multiple marathons. Again, multiple marathons with a broken foot. Like a lot of these things just didn't make any sense. I think that's why he fell under it. And I think there's a person who had mental health issues throughout their entire life. Just because you have autism does not mean you will self-delete. That doesn't make any sense. This was a particular case of a dude that his entire worldview, his identity was shattered when he was found out that he was making this stuff up.
It's just such an unfair situation.
He was an incredibly kind soul. And in the time I taught him, I can't remember Jason saying one unkind word about anyone.
Oh my gosh.
If he did plagiarize, was it worth this? Did it need that much scrutiny? Did it need that much intense reporting?
Or he could have just said, I'm sorry, I messed up, instead of pretending that he didn't do it. That's the problem. When you are caught, show accountability. If he would have shown accountability, why would there be more videos or more news articles?
This is such a bad take for this woman right here. Okay, fine, he plagiarized that. The amount of commentary about it really was facilitated by him being disingenuous and lying. If he had said, yeah, you're right, I got caught. People don't realize when in the early beginnings, it's the small foxes that spoil the vine. If you really just come clean in the beginning, there won't need to be a 2-week discussion about your shenanigans. So even in that, like if he had plagiarized, does it require all that? Why didn't he just come clean? And please keep in mind, we're not talking about he conned his way into Chattahoochee Tech. He didn't just con his way up into Chicken Grease University. This is Cambridge. This is a big deal. And he has shanghaied his way in, DIE'd his way into it. I'm sorry. That's a bigger deal than anything else. And yeah, it does require that.
About the situation. It would have been a dead situation. It would have been dead. Problem is, he couldn't handle it. So the plagiarism isn't the problem. It's that he crafted an entire life of lies. That's the problem.
There's been worse things done. And as I said, there's white professors that have done the same thing, and we don't even know who they are. But they're white, so it doesn't matter. But if you're black, oh dear, how dare you?
Journalists, so-called academics, the media, they hold them all responsible. They say lynchings are dead, but they're not dead. They're not over. They're still lynch. This is an example of modern day lynching. It's nothing else.
So the proposal for Arday's law, a limit to articles published on one person within a time frame.
That is ignorant.
This is a legit change.org post. And it already has 3,300 signatures on it. Now, I know you look at it right now, probably thinking this doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
But let's read some of the things that they're trying to do. This petition calls for legislative action to impose limitations on the number of news articles published about a single individual within a defined time frame. By doing so, we can ensure that individuals are not subjected to undue public pressure and potential mental anguish caused by excessive media coverage. The government must hold media outlets accountable for their role in amplifying potential damaging narratives. Implementing such a regulation would not only serve to protect individuals from undue stress, but also encourage more balanced reporting. It is crucial for our society to foster an environment where public discourse is informed, fair, and respected, especially when reputations and lives are at stake. So what they're saying is they want a certain limit on how many articles are written about one person in a certain time frame, and in this way, everything is okay. Now let's talk about how many different ways this law makes no sense, and it's probably the stupidest thing I've ever seen. The biggest problem is it regulates the quantity, but not the misconduct. So if there's 10 accurate articles that could be legal and useful, one false article can destroy someone's reputation, just like anything else, but counting stories doesn't measure the harm. Also, and this is really important, it gives the powerful people and most likely corrupt people a shield. So it could be a mayor, a celebrity, a company boss, alleged scammer. They can hit the article limit. After that, new outlets are maybe blocked from reporting fresh evidence. How is that helping? How is that holding truth to power as a media, as journalists trying to go out there to find the truth about what's going on? Also, it doesn't really define an article. Does an update count? How about a podcast, a YouTube video, a newsletter, news story, reposted reports? The petition doesn't make any sense because it doesn't really give a lot of answers. Also, it doesn't explain who gets the limit. A private citizen should receive more protection than a prime minister. So the petition is treating every person and every situation the same. Does that make any sense? And one of the biggest things is it just becomes government censorship. It's giving the government power to say, yeah, you talked about this situation, this person, enough, stop. So that means the most powerful people, the people who run the government, they would love something like this, especially when they get caught with a scandal. They get caught doing something wrong. They're getting caught with stealing money or doing something else that's nefarious, something else that's destroying the people's trust. Oh, well, get all the articles out of the way, so now I don't have to worry about it anymore and I can move on with my life. Right. That's a terrible, terrible way of doing things. This petition is...
Imagine this also, imagine what would stop a corrupt mayor from putting out, let's say that the limit is 10 articles, and a corrupt mayor puts out 10 articles about his latest scandal. And he pushes that out through the various sycophants and news outlets, and the 10 is met. So no new information is coming out, but the information in those 10 articles is wrong. It's not complete. It's maybe it's just completely fabricated. Who knows? That is a dumb article, and it's taking the onus off of it's taking the emphasis off of the actual problem. The problem is that Jason Arday lied. It's not that people are calling him out. It's that Jason Arday lied. That's the thing. And people need to accept that he lied. He was wrong, and he was called out about it, and then he continued to lie and double and triple down and not come clean and be honest. Therein is the problem. And so people are addressing it because, again, this is not at, Pork Chop University. We're talking about Cambridge. This is a big deal. I'm sure there's probably some shady professor at Pork Chop University. Nobody cares because Pork Chop University is not a big deal. This is not hard. Shout out to Hannibal is Hungry. Link will be down in the description to this video. Let's finish up.
It's written with a lot of emotion. When you get caught doing something wrong, the media is going to be relentless. And there's nothing really anyone can do about it other than basically don't get caught doing it in the first place. But also, you have to be able to hold yourself accountable. Be truly honest about what you did wrong and then move on. This idea that you can regulate the internet and stop people from talking about certain things is not going to happen. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your mental energy that could be used on fixing this problem. No, he didn't kill somebody. So what he did, unfortunately, wasn't worth doing. If he could have just been able to hold himself accountable, he would not have had to do what he did. But when you see rallies like this, it doesn't seem like that's going to matter. People are going to blame whoever they want to blame. And this doesn't really solve anything, to be honest. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to watch this video. And I'll see you guys in the next video.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the JWhit Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please do me a favor and hit me up with that 3-piece special. Like the video, subscribe, and of course, share it with somebody who would also enjoy this type of content. And make sure you leave a comment because I do pin the best comments to the top. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace.